It's the strength for me, it's the strength, it's the legacy, it's the faith, it's the history, unerased, of a sisterhood, of a race. It's the strength for me, it's the strength, it's the legacy, it's the faith, it's the history, unerased, of a sisterhood, of a race. In my shoes, listen to my blues. I stand before you, resilient, stronger than power, soft as a flower. I know the hour, I am the times. It's the strength for me, it's the strength, it's the legacy.
Hi, I am Gwen McKinney, your host for Unereased Recorded Live. Well, tonight, our topic is confronting the silent killers. We're talking to survivors, thrivers, transformational activists who have turned their illness into an opportunity to do good for themselves, their families, and their communities. October is Pink Ribbon Month, and we want it to be a call to action for Black women. Take a look at this video.
What really changed it for me was that second diagnosis. So 5 years from the initial time that I was diagnosed, I felt the lump. And you would think that I would not get breast cancer again, especially because I had a total mastectomy where they took everything to include my lymph nodes, that I would not get breast cancer again. But once I got it the second time, I knew that I was going to have to go through radiation, that I was going to have to go through chemotherapy. And at that point, I realized, I said, if I'm going to do this, because I know there's other women that look like me that is going through this, I can no longer hide in silence. I can no longer hide in fear. And that's when I really start speaking out and being an advocate. So, as I mentioned earlier, one, being active duty military, having 3 children, and learning that a lot of times things come on us because of stress, because we feel that we have to be all of this. We have to be that superwoman, right? But what happens when we're the superwoman is the one that's sick? A lot of times we don't have anyone to take care of us. That's when I realized that I needed to change my mindset on how I took care of myself. And that started truly honestly with saying, bump everything else and being very selfish. First is not to be fearful. Fear will make us stand still and not respond and not to act. Secondly, we can only do based on the information that we have at the time. Make a decision and learn to live with that decision.
We're going to get right to the heart of the matter.
I like that.
And we're going to have a wonderful guest. We are talking to Tara Robinson, not only a thriver, she is the founder of the Black Heart Association. Welcome, Tara. When you were 40, over the course of a single hellish week, you were struck with not one or two, but three heart attacks. Tell us how you got from there to here.
A hellish week is a good way to describe it. It was actually, I would, you know, my symptoms showed up in 2013. So I would say it was a hellish couple of months of just not knowing, and then going to the doctor and being sent home with no conversation about heart health in January of the same year of me having my heart attacks, and then to April 10th, 11th, 12th to experience these heart attacks. We're tested in certain ways in our lives, and how we pass that test is really truly up to us to pass or fail it. And what I experienced on April 10th was
This
bias.
was 2013.
2013, April 10th, 2013. What I experienced then, the first heart attack, was bias in care that could have cost me my life. The second heart attack on April 11th, which also could have cost me my life, was racism in care. Me and the cardiovascular doctor going back and forth on whether I should stay at the hospital or go home, and finally convincing her to keep me because I know my body as a woman. Not thinking I'm advocating for myself in that moment, not even thinking I'm facing racism, because nobody in their right mind really thinks that when they're going through a thing, that this could possibly be racism, especially when you're in crisis. You have no time, you really have no space in your mind to think about that. This is all hindsight. So they kept me in April 12th at 11 a.m. I was released, just to be going back at 4:00 p.m. having a massive heart attack. So how I got here was because of all of that. Had my life not been saved, or had God not chose me to stay on this earth and make death behave, I would not be here today. I ended up going into sudden death on the operating table that day, going to heaven. Coming back here to have the doctor, mind you, I never met him. We didn't know each other before the procedure. He comes into ICU and he tells me, God has you in the palm of his hands, Tara, because there's nothing I learned. I just stopped and prayed for you when you passed away on us for those moments. And so it was in that moment I knew I was called to do something, just wasn't quite sure what. And so I began to advocate. I began to volunteer my time at American Heart Association, becoming a national spokesperson for them, but realizing through that journey that there was a gap. That for some reason, even though I am an insured individual, I was a school counselor at that time. I'm a veteran, so I'm always in touch with the healthcare. But even then, I didn't think heart disease could touch me, because I was always told I was healthy. I don't have blood pressure, diabetes, cholesterol, I don't have any of those issues even to date. But I do have heart disease. And so I just think that, how did I miss this? How in the world did I think this could not happen to me? And one, is because of lack of representation in the space. Two, there's nobody meeting us at our very point of care or need. Nobody's driving the point home like we do here at Black Heart Association. And so just going through that experience with AHA taught me that there's a gap and you need to be the gap filler. So where there was a need, and so that's where we are today.
Our subject matter are the silent killers of Black women, confronting the silent killers. Women's heart attacks and symptoms of a heart attack are often different, atypical, and not the same as what we have always been taught are signs of a heart attack. Can you please explain that?
Yes. For one, we're not involved in research as we need to be, and our bodies don't operate like men. We know that from the beginning of, we know how things are. And so with that being said, our symptoms are all over the place. And
what do you mean all over the place? Describe
all
that.
over the place means that we can go from having absolutely no symptoms to having textbook symptoms of a heart attack. And we hear all what we what we deem as, oh wow, that's a symptom. Yes, I heard of a lady actually hiccuping, and as she was having hiccups, they got aggressively worse. She was having a heart attack. So, or a lot of times women are sent home because the doctor tell them, oh, that's anxiety, where actually that woman is experiencing a heart attack. So, or fatigue. We always look over that one because we're always tired. We're an exhausted society, right? So fatigue, but extreme fatigue is one we ignore. And so it can be a range of things that can cause us to have a heart attack. But my advice to anyone, any woman, anybody, you know your body better than anybody on this green earth. And so with that being said, that's what you stand on. If you don't feel well, you don't feel well. And it is what it is, and you need to make noise about it when someone is telling you to go home.
And if you think that you're having a cardiovascular episode and you go to the ER or to urgent care, what should you demand?
Okay, so if you think that you're having, I tell every woman this, the first thing you should go in there and say is, I think I'm having a heart attack. It's like when you use that verbiage, it clicks with them. Or I think I'm having a stroke. It just works. It's like a magic pen. I don't know why. You get all the tests. And the second thing I would tell anybody facing the system, because we still get these calls today that they're sending women home or they're sending somebody home just to go to another hospital and find out they're having heart attacks. These are the calls we're getting. So I'm not talking about something old. I'm talking about present time issues. You can tell that hospital, first of all, let us know who that hospital is, because we have no problem putting them on blast, because we don't have time for that. That's a death sentence to many Black women, many Black people. Thirdly, I would say, if somebody's trying to dismiss you, you just simply say to them, I do not agree with that decision. Please document my symptoms and what's in, and put that in my records. You're going to get a different tone from them, because now they understand that you know a little bit about the law and you're using it. And then you can also ask to see a provider that looks like you. Anybody in the hospital, I don't care, because maybe then they'll understand and be able to communicate what you can't say.
This seems like a good place to bring in another phenomenal striver, Roxanne Watson of New York, who was near death from lingering heart disease after years of illness and months in the hospital and a long wait for a heart transplant. She finally got the gift of life. Let's turn the screen to Roxanne, to this video that tells us more.
I'm Roxanne Watson. I received a heart transplant 2 years ago, and I am 58 years old. I have congestive heart failure, and I have heart history in my family. All the women in my family had heart failure.
At 56, Roxanne learned that her heart was failing and that she needed a heart transplant.
That was shocking. I was just like, that never ever occurred to me at all. I was in the hospital 104 days, 78 days waiting for the heart.
Roxanne remembers the day she received the gift of life.
I hear a nurse, Mary. It's Mary, wake up, I'm your nurse. You have a new heart. That's the first thing I heard. And then just as she said that, I felt a pulse in my neck. And I could literally feel the heart beating in my neck. Yeah, it was amazing. It really was. I decided that day that I was going to devote myself to the cause of organ donation and signing people up and honoring my donor by doing that. That's my son Kellen. He's 30 years old and he volunteers with me, and we've signed up over 1,500 people together.
Roxanne knows that many more donors are needed, including those over the age of 50.
When I talk to people over 50 about signing up, first of all, I tell them that I'm over 50, and hopefully they don't believe me. The first thing they say is, my organs are too old.
You're never too old to register as an organ, eye, and tissue donor. In fact, the oldest donor in the United States was 92. Just one organ donor can save up to 8 lives and improve the lives of up to 50 more through eye and tissue donation.
Do people know this?
That's why I'm here. And when you think about it that way, that you could help that many people, it's amazing. It really is. My goal is to be the biggest advocate, obviously, for the cause of organ donation, but also to sign up the most people in the United States of America. That's my goal.
Today, Roxanne has her health back, Kellen has his mom back, and the world has 2 committed donation advocates.
I'm definitely an organ donor, definitely.
I'm an organ donor too.
As an organ, eye, and tissue donor, you can share the gift of life, sight, and restored health. Start at organdonor.gov to sign up in your state donor registry and to learn more about living and deceased donation.
Tara, that story, Roxanne's story, I see some through lines, or actually lifelines. Both of you had a near-death health crisis that transformed you into activists. Can you close our conversation with a call to action to the Black women who are watching, who need to confront the silent killers in their lives?
Dear Black women, here's my personal love letter to you. We need you here. We need you here well. We give birth to a nation. Nobody does it better than us. But at the same time, we need balance in our life. Peace, prosperity is ours, but we have to manage our stressors. We have to know our triggers, and we have to learn how to take time to breathe and think about us first. That saying, pouring from an empty cup, is real. We can no longer afford to do that. Our lives are on the line. We're the most valuable person here on this earth. I believe that wholeheartedly. And I stand with you guys in truth, in health, and in love. Make time out of yourself in a 24-hour day. All you need is an hour for you.
Thank you so much. And continue to do that good work. And at Unerased, Black Women Speak, we are there in your corner and there to support you.
Thank you.
Roxanne's story is really an amazing segue for us to go into a conversation with Bernadine Watson. And actually, Roxanne, that story of her organ donor activism started in 2015. And 8 years later, she's still very active because she believes that organ donors save lives. And so I'm really proud to introduce you. Hi, Dean.
Hi, Gwen.
Thank you for joining us. And honestly, I think that Roxanne's story, as I said, is not only a segue, but it's an opportunity to tee up this conversation about organ donors, and we're going to back into it for you.
Okay.
So your story is really an honest telling of the blood, sweat, tears, and triumph that you endured over decades. From your diagnosis of kidney disease in 1984, spoiler alert, to 2 kidney transplants a lot of fits and starts, disappointments, and finally a precious gift of life that you embrace today. So I am so glad that you are joining us for Unerased Recorded Live and for this conversation with. Thank you.
I'm so glad to be here, Gwen.
So Bernadine's new book, which you saw on the screen, and I have it right here, Transplant, a memoir. For many years, your illness was not only silent, and by the way, the topic of our show this month is confronting the silent killers of Black women. Yours was not only silent, it was a secret.
Mm-hmm.
No one knew. What made you finally put this 40-year journey to words for the world to read?
I wanted to be well. I wanted to be well on a number of different levels, on a physical level, on a mental level, and on a spiritual level. And I came to believe through lots of discussions with myself, through therapy, through starting to really take good physical care of myself and really be in kind of conversation with myself, that I needed to be more open about who I was and what had happened in my life. And once I had gone through that second transplant, I thought that there was really nothing that I couldn't do. So I decided that I would do something I always wanted to do, which was write a book. And people always told me that my story was a fabulous, interesting story that could not only help me, but help other people. I decided to go ahead and write it. And I didn't want to let myself down. I wanted to be someone that was okay being seen in the world. So I decided that I needed to do that.
All right. So rewind to 2004,
okay,
where you kind of kick off the storytelling. An unlikely location, the upscale neighborhood of DuPont Circle in downtown DC. In an inconspicuous office building on the basement level, there's a dialysis center. Take us to that place. What did it look like? How did it feel? Who was there? Tell us about it. Give us the visual.
I can remember my first day there today, and there are chills on my arms as I remember my husband driving me to the dialysis center, reluctantly leaving me there. And I walk into the building and there is a guard at the door, and he just looks at me and says, "You must be going down." And I thought to myself, why does he think the only place I can go in this building of 6 floors, the only place I can go is down to dialysis? And that really enraged me, because I thought, do I just look like a dialysis patient? I think there's a line in the book that says, "Is it all down from here?" But I went downstairs and I walked into that sitting room that was a sitting room that was full of Black people.
How many?
Black people.
How many?
I'm going to say in the sitting room there were maybe 50 people. And everybody was Black. Some people, we were all waiting to get let into the dialysis center itself. I looked in the window and there were about 50 chairs there. There was a stench in the place that I remembered. This was my second time on dialysis that I remembered from the first time, but it really sunk into me this time because I did not know how long I was going to be on dialysis. Before I had a donor, I had no donor. This
But
second
tell
time
me about,
around,
what about that stench? What was it?
well, I had asked about the stench at my old dialysis center, and a technician told me it was blood and cleaning fluid and the things that they used to clean the machines. It smelled like death to me. It smelled like urine and death. There were a lot of people sitting around with no legs. There were people sitting around that were blind. There were people that looked like they were fine. But there were some people eating fast food, and I knew you weren't supposed to do that. And I just felt like I was in the wrong place.
In the wrong place.
I was in the wrong place. These people were not my people. I had been healthy my whole life. And now here I was when I was told that through my first transplant, my kidney would last for 20 years. And here I was again.
How many years after that? Let us know.
How many years? It was only 5 years.
You had a short stint. Your sister so generously gave up her kidney, and the kidney failed, and you end up on dialysis. People end up on dialysis because it's end-stage renal disease. Is that the reason why? I mean, I'm just asking you so you can confirm that.
Well, I have a disease, I still have it even with the kidney, called focal segmental glomerular sclerosis. When they told me that, I couldn't even pronounce it. FSGS, they say for short. And it is a disease that disproportionately affects African American people because it comes from a gene that people in Africa have, but that can be damaged. And if the genes are damaged, you are more likely to get this FSGS disease. One thing about it is that there is no cure, and it can come back, even in a new kidney. So I have FSGS. It is predominant in Black people. And in 5 years, it came back, even though my sister was supposed to be a perfect match for me.
And Dean, the thing that's interesting, when a patient is on dialysis, that means that their kidneys are either failing or in trouble, or what does that mean?
It means that they do not have enough kidney function for their kidneys to work. The kidney has these little hairs, you would call them, and they're called glomeruli. And they filter the blood. When they're damaged, the blood can't be filtered, urine can't be produced, and the kidney eventually loses function. There is no cure for it. If there are all types of kidney disease, and some is caused by high blood pressure, some is caused by diabetes, two things that are prevalent in the African American community, and mine is caused by FSGS.
All right, and I think that clearly, I'm going to shift gears a little bit. One of the things that comes through in the book is your plans for a good life. I mean, you came from a struggling working class family, but you were smart, you worked hard, you were studious, you went to college, you got a good education, then you followed it with a good job, you were making decent money, you were having a profession, you ate reasonably well, you were healthy, you were never overweight, you exercised and even practiced yoga and meditation. Then at 33, you're hit with this insane diagnosis, FSGS, and I can't pronounce it, so I'm just going to use the initials. Why me?
Yeah.
You ask that all the time. Answer that question for us.
Why me? I have two answers now. One, because I'm human, I'm flesh and blood. And a doctor once told me, sometimes your body lets you down. Things happen to you if you have a human body. And two, I'm African American. And because African Americans have, now, they don't know why exactly. I have FSGS. I did not have high blood pressure. I did not have uh, diabetes, but there are some genetic issues involved with FSGS that they're just starting to study now. That means that the disease can jump around in families. For example, my father is a diabetic. Maybe I'm one of those African American people that has that damaged gene. We don't know. I'm getting genetic testing now to try to find out exactly why I got it. So why me? Because I'm Black and because I'm human. I am not special in that way. In the human family, we get sick.
And this is an amazing thing, the transformation, because when we started the memoir, you were special. And like you said, these weren't my people.
Mm-hmm.
But the journey, and it was the blood, sweat, tears, and I'm going to get gross, the vomit,
Mm-hmm.
that united you with those people. Is that true or not? Or how reflective is that of your circumstance?
Well, memoirs are your memories, and you can take all kinds of privilege with memory. But I think you summed it up pretty well. One of the things I wanted to do with this memoir was to be very, very honest. Everything that happened to other people in that room happened to me.
Yeah.
And I began to see that these actually were my people. Mm-hmm. And I realized that no matter how many, no matter where you live, how many degrees you get, how healthy you think you are, you're still going to be Black in America.
Yes.
And that was, these were realizations that as I sat there in that dialysis center, that came to me day after day. And I had to try to deal with those realities while still maintaining who I was.
Yeah. You dedicated the memoir to 3 people who were your cohorts. Yes. In the kidney, in the dialysis center, and all 3 of them are not here anymore.
Yeah.
I think that you came to an abiding solidarity, as you mentioned just a minute ago, that you are us.
Yes.
To wrap up our conversation, tell me a little bit more about that.
Well, once I started to get to know those 3 people, one's name was T, and I think he affected me most. He reminded me of my Uncle Bobby, a beautiful, beautiful Black man that had all kinds of physical issues. My uncle had been a drug addict and he died. And T had kidney disease. He was chemically dependent. He was homeless, but he was the most, he had many strokes, but he was the most beautiful person. And we just got to really vibe with each other. Clint, Clint was my nemesis. Clint would always hit on me every time I walked into the dialysis center. But he reminded me of the older dudes that would on my block when I was growing up. They would always say, "Hey, Miss B," that. And Cassandra, who opened up her life to me and told me about why she wasn't getting another kidney. These people embraced me. And I knew that they were the family that I needed to get through that dialysis situation. And when I had my kidney transplant, I went back to visit the center. It took me a while, but I did. And all three of them were gone.
Yeah, which is a typical story for people who are on dialysis. The life expectancy is kind of low. Is that not true?
The life expectancy is somewhere between 7 to 10 years. That's why if you want to take care of yourself before you have high blood pressure, before you have diabetes, which are both of those, diabetes and high blood pressure, are both, they are both things that can cause your kidneys to fail. So you want to try to stay in as good a health as possible. And if you get kidney disease, they're starting to experiment now with some medications that can stave off some of these issues for some time, but there's still no cure.
I want you to give us a call to action. For the Black women and any of our friends and allies who are watching, what's your parting shot, Bernadine?
My parting shot is go to the doctor, have a physical, and when you have that physical, ask them to check your kidney function. And then follow up on that, because often the doctors won't just check it unless you ask for it. Ask them to tell me your numbers, your creatinine level, your GFR. Those are all numbers that go with your kidney disease, your kidney function. And that's on the one hand. And on the other hand, if you don't have a spiritual practice, and I'm not a technically religious person, but develop a spiritual practice so that you will have something to fall back on. Yoga, meditation, something where you can go and be by and talk to yourself about what you are going to do. How are you going to live? What kind of person do you want to be, sick or healthy? And I think those are the two things that I would leave you with.
Thank you so much. And much success on your memoir and your continued journey for life and living.
Thank you so much for having me. Thank you.
Let's close with the Unerased homage to joy. Thanks again for watching.
Our joy, it's everywhere we are. Low tech and high touch. A smile, a joke, a belly laugh. Warm sunshine, magical sunsets, rainbows in the storm. A shopping spree, a summer picnic, a girl's getaway, a friend's play date, a poem, a book, a prayer. Quiet space from a clamoring day. A Sunday brunch, a champagne toast, a decadent dessert. Soothing, breathing, stretching, or being still. A fast jig, a long walk, a slow dance. Joy is ours. Joy is us. Let's claim it, then own it.
Thank you.